Yes, sir. Let's get it. Let's get it. And we're look like we're live, all the way live. Let's get in the building. Peace, y'all. So, once again, Bandeli Alamin back in the building once again for another exciting episode. Today, we will be discussing marriage versus matrimony. All right. So, big up, y'all. Peace, peace, Abargani, Islam, Salam, Etepu, Black Power, Rahubat, Chino Lako Ninani, Chief Noble Bandele, back in the building. All right. We're going to let a few people get in the building if we can. Shout out to my boy King El Bay in the building. He always on the lookout. Today we're going to be getting into, like I said, we're going to get into matrimony, holy matrimony, and marriage. What's the difference? Why you don't want to do the marriage? Why is it more feasible to do holy matrimony? Okay, so we're going to go into that. Before we get into all that, y'all, please check out all of my books on Amazon right here. Moorish Moabite. The Moorish Treaty book, the biggest selling. Moorish Moabite. Nationality. The second Moorish Treaty book to get it. This is my latest book, The Canaanite Connection. Y'all go get this. It breaking down it all. It break down Hebrew, like the origins of all Western religions. Okay, so we got that. The book that we're going to be looking at today, and it's going to be similar, is we're going to be looking at The Guide to Religious Marriage. So if you're feeling what's on here, if you're feeling what I'm talking about, if you watch some other marriage videos I've done, please go get The Guide to Religious Marriage, okay? So you can really get a full understanding, overstanding, all right? So we got all my books. Hey, this is a great journal for a great Kwanzaa or holiday gift, okay? So y'all go grab that. Okay, so enough with that being said. Today we're going to be dealing with the marriage versus matrimony. And what we're going to be using today is coming straight from our Moorish indigenous service.webs.com. Okay. If you guys haven't been to our website for indigenous services, please do that. This website, it's not big, but it's packed with information. Okay. If you guys are looking to do sovereignty, if you're really looking at learning law, if you're trying to figure out your case, if you're trying to figure out how to do certain things as far as with your family, marriage, like we're going to be talking about, go here, right? So today, like if you go to our page, if you go to indigenousservices.wes.com, and if you click on links, it's going to take you to this page we're on right now. So if you go to links, now what we got on here, I'm going to take you to the sovereignty forms and instructions. Okay. When you go to sovereignty forms and instructions, it takes you to this page right here. Okay. This, y'all, this got so much stuff on it, man. Like everything you probably need to know about forms or instructions on quote unquote sovereignty. And understand when we talk about sovereignty, we're not talking about sovereign citizen, right? And as Moors, we're not doing the sovereign, but there's a lot of understanding in the sovereignty to learn that helps you produce your Moorish or your indigenous culture better. Okay. So when you go to this page, it's going to give you all the forms. So just look over here. Just look. All these forms. Okay. We're talking about family, legal, which is where we're going. It's in the family part. Okay. but it's got all this. So y'all go check it out for yourself, right? But what we're going to do is we're going into the family part, about marriage, okay? So when we talk about marriage, holy matrimony versus marriage, there is a difference. Holy matrimony is the equivalent of what we describe at the temple as a religious marriage. Okay, so understand that. Okay, let me check to see who's in the building real quick, man, just to see. Let me go see. Okay, so we good, y'all. Let's get into it. All right, so holy matrimony versus marriage is discussing the difference between. Now, this word is what they use for religion. When you see the word ecclesiastical, okay, ecclesiastical ceremonies, ecclesiastics or when you see that, you've seen that word in the Bible. That word is used for religion. Now, I will say this, with sovereignty, most sovereignty stuff is coming from a Christian mindset. What you have to do is you have to take the tenets or the structure of these things and then relay it to your religious beliefs. Okay, so just because this is saying Christian doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to all religions, because the Constitution protects all religious rights. It just happens that the most popular religion pretty much in America is Christianity. So that is the one that is used the most. So please don't get caught up in that, because me personally, I'm not a Christian, but I have understood how to use these documents for our spiritual practices. Okay. So with that being said, when we see the word ecclesiastical, that's dealing with religion. Okay. So it's saying that with no legal significance, and that legally binding covenant with the state called marriage. So when you get married by the state, that's what you call marriage. Okay. That's what you call marriage. So understand that. Now, we're not going to go over this whole thing, but we're going to deal with the meat of this. It says that there are many ways in which legal systems increases its limited authority, but is most complete through the consent of an individual. With that being said, when you get married, you consent with the state by going to get a marriage license, right? So that's your consent, going to the state. I was watching the video yesterday, and a lot of times when you watch, like, especially conservative, like Republican conservatives, they often talk about how the state is trying to take over. One of the things the state has done is the state has stepped in for same-sex marriage. Now, as legislation has been passed for same-sex marriage, it has created more power for the state. So the state is continuously taking away your right to marry on your own. This is why it's very important to go from the religious route. Okay, so anyway, it says that in China, they have the one-child contract, saying if you sign it, you'll become eligible for many benefits offered by the government, such as free medical care, schooling, better paying jobs. Now, it says if later the mother becomes pregnant and refuses to abort the child, the family becomes responsible for paying all the expenses on the second child, and then paying back all the benefits they received for the first one. So they penalize you if you sign the contract. If you sign on with the government in China, that's not much different than the United States, as it says in here. In America, the pressure to abort a child is often more subtle, but at the same time, it's there. The state is trying to control how things are done, or how people are married. Okay, it says that the same dealt subtly on our kindred. The evil entreated our fathers so that they cast out their young children to the end they may not live. So they're using the Bible to show how, this foreseeing of, abortion and the state having no real heart, if you will, for the family. It says if children survive, and overcome this, there's so much pressure on them if you have a child. And so when you look in the community, they kind of subtly push on you abortion because you don't have the capability of surviving. They push that on you. Okay. So these are things that the state does subliminally to us. But really what we're looking at is this. The union of man and woman is the law of nature. I want you to understand this. Okay. The union of man and woman is the law of nature. It says here by these definitions and maxims, we see that the union of a man and woman is relative yet private. Listen, private and natural relationship. And as a natural relationship is subject to natural law being divine will, in contradiction to positive law being the law established under human sanctions. So let's look at this. We're saying that the union between man and woman comes from natural law, because when the first men and women were on the planet, and as they begin to attract to each other and make commitments to each other, these things were not done by any laws per se. It was the natural law of attraction that brought them together. So natural law is your divine law, or what we would say God's will, divine law. So God's law is where marriage really lies. Okay, this is where marriage really comes from divine will. But in contradiction to positive law. What is positive law? They say positive law are human laws, sanctions, things that are positive law that are dealt with through human law. So human law is not on the same level as nature's law or God law. Okay. It says, if we have identified these concepts properly, it does seem that the natural relations of husband and wife and its products, such as children, should be relatively free from any interference by government. And so it should be for matrimony. Okay. Matrimony ought to be free. The laws of nature are unchangeable. Okay. Man, because man didn't create the law, okay, then that means that they don't have the right to change the law. The law of nature is unchangeable because, in the premise that God never changes, the laws would be the same as well. So let's look at the word. Marriage, as distinguished from the agreement to marry and from the act of becoming married, it is the civil status of one man and one woman united in law for the discharge to each other and the community of duties legally incumbent of those who association is found on the distinction of sex. So marriage distinguished from the agreement to marry. So when we're looking at this, marriage versus agreeing to marry, and from the act of becoming married, these are the civil status of one man. Civil status. So when we talk about civil, we're talking about laws that are dealing with the state. So when people get married through the state, that's what they call a civil marriage, right? And we've talked about this. You guys need to go back and look at the other videos I have done on marriage, okay? So it says, first, it is clear that marriage is distinguished, especially different from both the agreement to marry and the act of becoming married. Secondly, marriage is a civil status, okay? Civil is a word used in contradiction to military, ecclesiastical, natural, or foreign. Thus, we speak of civil station, okay? So listen, they're telling you that civil is contradiction to military, which military a lot of times we're under military law, but I'm not even going to get into that for the sake of this video. That's a later video, but we're talking about, they're saying that civil is not the same as military. It's not the same as ecclesiastical or religious. It's not the same as natural or foreign. So all these different terms are different jurisdictions, okay? It also explains that the obligations of one man and woman are not merely to each other, but also to the community, and that these civil duties are legally incumbent. An incumbent is then defined as a person who is present, possession of an office, who is legally authorized to discharge the duties of an office. So getting legally married is by a person who is legally competent. So we're still talking about marriage. We're talking about civil. So these are all the things that, tie you back to civil law. Okay, the word person and individual are not synonymous. A person being defined as a man considered according to the rank he holds in society, with all the rights to which place he holds entitled him and the duties he imposes. So when we're talking about persons in this particular definition, we're not speaking about the corporate term persons, because we know person in black law also can mean a corporation, but it does also mean an actual living being. Okay. Now, the word individual in this book language, found in the volume library, which you guys can go look at, is treated as the word frequently misused and clarify its meaning and statement. The word individual should not be used in the mere sense of a person. The word is correctly used in changes both in individuals and communities. So even when you're using the word individual, now the word individual also could mean something else besides a human being, okay? Which you'll find that also in the black law. So nonetheless, let's keep going. Okay. Every person is a man, but not every man is a person. A person by definition is legally bound and connected to a community, while the individual seems to be equal or on a separate footing from the community. An individual apparently not obligated to the bureaucratic administrations in the same degree as those in the legal community. Okay. Man is a term of nature, person of the civil law. Okay, so now we're getting deeper into this. Okay, so in today's domestic relationship of marriage is neither natural, okay, remembering that the law of nature is divine will, nor ecclesiastical, and distinguished from civil or secular. As spoken of earlier in Bouvier's The private relationship of husband and wife, parent and child, guardian and ward, are not the same as legal relationship granted by a marriage license, which is clearly public as the relation as the magistrate and people. So understanding that marriage essentially is supposed to be a private endeavor between y'all and the family. It's a private matter. It's a private. Once you go to the state, you are creating a public and a civil statement. Okay? Listen, a marriage license is a license. All right, I see you, man. A marriage license is a license or permission granted by public authority to persons who intend to intermarry. By statute, it is made an essential prerequisite to the lawful solemnization of the marriage, as opposed to ecclesiastical solemnization. So, once again, I mean, they're telling you there's this distinction, there's this difference, okay, of a marriage license. We get caught up in the marriage license. People tell you all the time, oh, if you don't have a marriage license, then you're not really married legally. Okay, they tell you that. A marriage license is a license or permission granted by the public authority to persons who intend to intermarry. Okay? By statute, it is made an essential prerequisite to the lawful solemnization of the marriage, as opposed to ecclesiastical solemnization. It should be becoming clear that there is two types of marriages, okay, between two types of husband and wife relationships. So understand this: when you go through civil, you are creating a different type of relationship of husband and wife. What a husband and wife means in the civil jurisdiction is not the same thing that husband and wife mean in a religious jurisdiction, or even for that matter, in natural law. Okay, marriage is often referred to as a civil contract, but the emphasis in such a reference is not on the word contract, okay, but upon the word civil, as distinguished from ecclesiastical. Since there is religious freedom in this country, this is right here is gonna get deep, and this is what probably confuses people, right? So we're gonna break this down. It says, since there is freedom in this country, a religious ceremony and rules of ecclesiastical organization with regard to marriage have no legal significance. Okay. Now it says, though mutual assent is necessary to enter into a marriage, the marriage itself is a status or relationship rather than a contract. The rights and obligations of the party thereto being fixed by the law instead of by the parties themselves. Hence, marriage are not within the provisions of the United States Constitution, forbidding a state to impair the obligation or of contract. So check this out. When you get into a marriage with the state, it's already got statutory law in place. You don't really have a contract that you have to sign stipulating anything. The state has already put in place what it wants the marriage to be. When you get into a ecclesiastical or a natural law marriage or these things of that nature, you are signing, you could create your own contract. Now, I have done a video. You guys need to go back and look at contracting your own marriage, because at the end of the day, you should contract your own marriage and put your stipulations on the marriage. What would happen if I did this? What happens if there is some type of playing around in our marriage? What happens if I abuse drugs? What happens if I abuse my child? What happens if I abuse my wife or my wife abuses me? These things can all be settled in your own contract. Okay. And that you have the right to do that. And so what it's saying is, in a sense, that the United States is going against the Constitution by creating these contracts of state with the state, which impair your right to contract yourself. Okay. Now like I said, I'm gonna get deep into this, because this is the thing. My question, a lot of people might have this under the question: if I get married in a church, isn't that a religious marriage? Right? Well, let's read this, okay? Talking about marriage. So however, a marriage performed by an ecclesiastical organization, listen, should not be confused with a marriage performed by today's churches, which are incorporated entities. Boom, that's one of the state. And they are performing civil marriages, listen, as agents of the state. In most cases, churches will not marry any couple who has not obtained permission to marry, aka a marriage license, through the purchase of a license from the state prior to the ceremony, Almost all marriages performed in these churches are performed by the authority vested in those churches and ministers by the state in which they have agreed to act as an agent. Okay? This makes the minister or officer of the state carrying out official duties of the state. Those marriages are not, listen, those marriages are not ecclesiastical because they do have legal significance. Okay? We know for a fact. I put it like this. Anybody who's getting married, go try to talk to a minister and see if they'll marry you with your own paperwork. If you take down there your own affidavits of marriage, see if they do it. See if they do it. And they won't. Now it says, what does it mean to have legal significance? So you'd have to look at law versus legal. Because what you're talking about is legalese. You're talking about legal, which is dealing with statutory, right? Which is dealing with the codes. So when you look at the codes of Michigan, the codes of Ohio, the codes of whatever state you're in, that is where the civil law of marriage resides, in those codes and statutes. That is legal, okay? The word church in the New Testament is translated from the Greek word, okay? So today, incorporated churches are not marrying couples religiously or ecclesiastically, but are calling their people into an unequal civil relationship with the state. Kind of a deceptive thing, is a tactic as well. The churches don't tell you that they are doing what they're doing. Okay, I remember having a discussion with a minister, and we were talking, and I said that you don't do this from God. You do this from the state. And he wants to tell me, no, I do it for God. Well, if that's true, I said, why do you say, with the power invested in me through the state of Ohio? Okay. So they are not doing this under the power or the authority of God. They are doing this under the power and authority of the state. Okay. Wife and sons are names of nature. Okay, so these titles and names are not names of the state. They are names that are given in nature. Now, this is an old case, but in 1906, the Supreme Court of Nebraska stated that it, or marriage, differs from all other contracts. It has far-reaching consequences to the body politic itself. And for that reason, in dealing with it or the status resulting therein, the state never stands indifferent, but is always a party whose interests must be taken into account. When you get married, each child belongs to the state. Okay? Because it's like not just the fact that you get a birth certificate for them. Before you got a birth certificate, let's just say you did it the right way. Let's just say you got married first, and then you had children. If you got married through the state owned the marriage. So all the children are also under the state, regardless if you got a birth certificate for them or not. Because you got a certificate that's saying that marriage license is basically saying that the state has vested interest in this relationship. And anything that is created from this marriage, the state has vested interest in. Does that make sense, y'all? Okay. Just checking on y'all. All right. So let's get back to it. And we're going to wrap this up. Now, we haven't talked about common law, but common law plays a part too in marriages that you can do. And we've talked about common law on previous videos. So like I said, y'all go back and hopefully I'll put these other videos that I did on marriage in the description, okay, at some point. So the rest of this is religious, okay. So I'm not going to get into that, okay. But I want this for you to come to some type of understanding, an overstanding that a holy matrimony is what we call a religious matrimony, which is a religious marriage, a religious binding of the two. And that comes under a different jurisdiction than your typical civil state marriage. Okay. So a lot of people out there, if y'all are trying to, if you guys are looking to get married or get, you guys want to get married, you don't want to have the state involved in your marriage. If you guys are looking to create contracts of marriage that are not under the state, then please get in contact with the Temple of New Kemet. The number should be flashing on here. I will put my number up just in case you don't see the bottom. But the number is here for anybody who is looking to, like I said, get married or have a marriage. Because the thing about it is this: you can get married religiously without having a minister that's by the state do it. And then the key to it is to contract. So, a lot of people out here say, oh, why should I have to get married and have paperwork, right? Why should we have a paper saying I'm married, right? Well, the reason why is because it's used as evidence that you guys were married. Because anybody can say, I'm married, but to actually have a contract, meaning that you guys are seriously contracted with each other and are in a legal binding contract with you too. Now, because I've been married religiously, I have used my religious contract to in replace of the marriage license. So when I had to get my son into school and I had to show proof of an address, okay, and being that we just moved in, and we didn't have certain things they required for address, but when I was able to show that me and my wife was together with my religious marriage, then there was no problem. So you do not. So even though they say when you get married, that's a legal marriage, it's only because most of the time when you get married, you don't have any contracts that you sign. Otherwise, okay. But if you have a contract, and that's what we do at the Temple of New Kemet. We create legal contracts, religious contracts. Okay. No matter what your religion is, okay, we customly make these to your religion. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily a Hebrew Israelite, okay? So if you have a Hebrew Israelite who wants to get married, then you put in what the tenets of a marriage is for a Hebrew Israelite. Then you would refer back to your religious text, perhaps the Bible, the Torah. You would use those books in your contract. Or if you're Islamic, what you use? You're going to use the Holy Quran or the Bible for Christians or whatever. For us, a lot of like us, we're African spiritualists or spiritualists. So we would use other things. The Temple of New Kemet has their own spiritual book of ancestors. So we use our ancestral book as our use for our religion. Okay. For us, the ancestors are in our marriage. Okay. So we'll use a lot of ancestral, sayings and whatnot in our religion. I mean, in our marriage. So that's really the basics of it. If you guys want to see some more, like I said, go to our page, indigenousservices.webs.com, and you can check it out. But that's really all I needed to say on this. And I'm gonna try to get back on some more videos, man. I've been slipping, man. I've been so busy. I haven't had time to get on the thing, but I'm gonna try to get back on here and put more videos out. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and I will get back to you at a later time. And until then, tutanana. Peace.